The View hosts have got themselves into hot water again after they did the very thing they purport to be against, undermining women's success. Joy Behar stunned viewers when she said Donald Trump's press secretary, 27-year-old Karoline Leavitt, only secured her position because of her good looks.
I think she's probably been put in there because according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though, it's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous administration.
The comment was bizarre, especially coming from Joy Behar, who is as woke as they come and positions herself as a champion of feminism. This online commentator said, disgusting Joy Behar of The View accuses Karoline Leavitt of being hired only because Donald Trump thought she was a 10.
The latest drama surrounding The View is a brutal reminder of the dangers of underestimating guests, especially when they're as unapologetically bold as Karoline Leavitt. This young conservative political strategist has been making waves, and the show's hosts didn't seem ready for the heat she brought. It all started when Joy Behar, with her signature smugness, tried to dismiss Leavitt as unqualified, implying she only made it this far because of her looks. It didn't take long for viewers to realize The View had crossed a line again. But Karoline wasn't about to take the jab lying down. Instead of letting it slide, she clapped back with a response that not only shut Behar down, but also exposed the hypocrisy behind The View's so-called feminist stance.
Talk about the fact that Democrats have been labeling President Trump a to democracy for the better half of 10 years. Let's talk about how they have compared him to one of the worst mass in the history of the world, and that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden weaponized the court system and the justice system in this country against Donald Trump in an attempt to imprison him. He sat through a courthouse for 7 weeks this past year, and the Democrats were hoping he would go to jail for it. That is real political that has led to 2 heinous attempts on President Trump's life that by the grace of God, he was able to escape, and he is here with us today. So yes, President Trump knows a little bit about political because he's experienced it himself. And talking about the tragic realities of war that Liz Cheney and her father Dick Cheney have got this country into is not political. It's talking about the reality of the foreign conflicts that the Washington, D.C. establishment have sold out young Americans to for decades.
Instead of caving to the usual elitist snark, Leavitt did something many before her failed to do. She pushed back, and she did it with a mix of sharp intelligence, unshakable poise, and, most crucially, undeniable facts. The moment Behar made her dismissive jab, Leavitt made it clear her success had nothing to do with her looks. It was all about years of hard work, in-depth political expertise, and a mastery of communication, the very qualities that made her a real threat to The View's panel of so-called intellectuals. Leavitt didn't hesitate to call out the absurdity of reducing a woman's accomplishments to her appearance, especially coming from a show that constantly preaches female empowerment. The hypocrisy was glaring. The View claims to uplift women, but the moment one doesn't fit their left-wing agenda, they tear her down in the same way they pretend to oppose. And trust me, the irony wasn't lost on anyone watching.
No, please. His opponents are saying to this very day the same rhetoric that led to those 2 attempts. The second attempted on President Trump's life echoed the sentiment that President Trump is a democracy. And if you're a deranged lunatic and you're mentally ill, you will believe that lie, and yes, you will take political like we have seen in 2 instances against President Trump. Last week, Tim Walz and Kamala Harris said that everyone who showed up to President Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden was a That's despicable, dangerous, divisive rhetoric that is spewed by the Democrat Party every single day. And I'm so sick and tired of the media pointing the finger at Donald Trump and saying that he is sowing division in this country. He is not. The media is for pushing hoaxes like the one that you all pushed today, and the Democrat Party is for pushing lies about him. But the good news is Americans don't buy it. And that's why today in 2024, President Trump is more popular than he has been since 2016, because people don't trust the media.
Let's cut to the chase. This wasn't just about Joy Behar's petty remark. It's part of a much larger pattern we see time and time again. Whenever a young, articulate conservative woman starts making waves, the media rushes to undermine her. We've seen it with Kayleigh McEnany, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and Elise Stefanik. The second a woman doesn't fit into the left's neat little box, the narrative changes. She's suddenly not accomplished, not serious, just a token, just eye candy for the men around her. And that's exactly what The View tried to do here. Throw a lazy, sexist jab, expecting no one to push back. But this time, it backfired in a big way. Leavitt didn't just call out the double standard, she made sure Behar and the panel knew her success was built on hard work and merit, not privilege or connections. Unlike The View hosts, who've built careers by talking over people and pandering to an already agreed upon audience, Leavitt earned her spot in the political world. She didn't stop there. She reminded them of something they missed entirely. While they're sitting around gossiping and throwing cheap shots, she's out there shaping political conversations and actually making an impact. Leavitt isn't just another talking head on daytime TV. She's contributing to the larger political discourse. And it didn't take long for that moment to explode online. People from all sides of the political spectrum flooded social media, calling out The View for its glaring hypocrisy. Clips of Leavitt shutting down Behar's condescending remarks spread like wildfire, with viewers across the board agreeing that not only was Behar's attack uncalled for, but it was also self-defeating. Even those who didn't align with Leavitt politically had to admit she'd exposed a major flaw in The View's so-called mission to empower women. This moment was a sharp reminder that when it comes to political discourse, The View isn't about lifting women up. It's about silencing the ones they don't like.
Because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Mm-hmm. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason, because Black people couldn't get into colleges.
The View loves to talk about empowering strong, independent women, but only if they stay within the show's narrow, left-wing agenda. The second a woman challenges their views, she's reduced to just a pretty face, who doesn't deserve a seat at the table. If that wasn't bad enough for The View, their attempt to take down Leavitt backfired in the most spectacular way. Behar's petty jab wasn't just cruel, it revealed a deep insecurity among the panel. Rather than engage with Leavitt on her political stance, they defaulted to shallow personal attacks, showing they had no real counterpoint to her arguments. Instead of addressing her ideas, they fixated on her appearance, making themselves look weak and petty. It was a textbook case of projection. Rather than acknowledging that a young conservative woman had earned her success through merit, The View tried to spin the narrative to fit their own ideological box, but this time, no one was falling for it.
Because women could not get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all women. Yeah. See, this is not Black, Asian women. This is all women. Women were not invited to this party. It was a man's world, and we busted our asses to make sure that this was a person's world. So please stop using that phrase and talking about, because you don't understand what you're saying. Mm-hmm. You're saying about yourself that, hey, that's a terrible thing to be. It's not a terrible thing to be. That's why we fought. That's what we were fighting for, so that you could stand in that podium, so that Catherine Jean-Pierre could stand at that podium. So women of all kinds of colors and ilks, wherever they came from, whatever their belief system was, they had the opportunity to bust down that door.
Behind closed doors, sources at ABC are reportedly saying the backlash was worse than they anticipated. Executives, already fed up with the show's constant stream of controversy, are now questioning whether Joy Behar, a longtime fixture on The View, is doing more harm than good. Sure, The View thrives on stirring up drama, but there's a fine line between being provocative and crossing into problematic territory. And this time, the show definitely crossed that line in a way the network can't just ignore. What really turned this into a disaster, though, was how Leavitt responded. She didn't play the victim or whine. She seized the moment to show exactly who she is. She stood her ground, spoke confidently, and proved why she belongs in the political conversation. This wasn't just a win for Leavitt, it was a wake-up call for The View and anyone who underestimates conservative women in politics. The tired narrative they've peddled for years, that these women are unqualified, shallow, or just there to look good, was shattered in a single, let's unravel what could easily be Hollywood's most explosive fiasco of 2024. George Clooney, Hollywood's golden boy known for his charisma, sophistication, and status as cinematic royalty, is now caught in the middle of a career meltdown so over the top, it feels ripped straight from one of his own disaster movies. At the core of this mess is a feud so fiery, so public, and so wildly entertaining, it's grabbed the attention of both the industry elite and everyday viewers alike. And the unexpected co-star in this unscripted drama, Bill Maher, the unfiltered host of Real Time, wielding his signature wit like a weapon. But before we unpack this whirlwind of betrayal and scandal, a quick shout out for tuning in, because trust me, this is one wild ride you won't want to miss. Clooney's troubles began with what was supposed to be a straightforward political ad, a nod to his activism, and a move to keep him relevant in today's shifting cultural tides. Instead, the ad was a disaster. It wasn't just criticized, it was utterly shredded. Don't believe me? Let me show you the infamous clip. Buckle up, it's about to get interesting.
Come on, boys. Let's make America great again. It's your turn, buddy.
Before you cast your vote in this election, think about how it'll impact the people you care about the most.
Daddy!
Remember, you can vote any way you want, and no one will ever know.
Do your patriotic duty.
You bet I did, brother.
What happens in the booth stays in the booth. Vote Harris Walls.
Paid for by Vote Common Good.
Critics wasted no time tearing into Clooney, branding him as tone-deaf, insincere, and, above all, guilty of blatant pandering. A slip-up is one thing, but this misstep felt like a complete free-fall down the stairs of public opinion. While Clooney has survived controversies before, the Hollywood landscape has shifted. It's less forgiving now, and backlash spreads like wildfire. For a star with a carefully crafted image to maintain, this wasn't just bad press, it was a full-blown crisis. Determined to take back control of the narrative, Clooney launched a full-scale media offensive to repair his image and win back public support. But this wasn't just your run-of-the-mill PR push, it was a high-stakes, all-or-nothing campaign. At the center of it was a bold strategy, an appearance on Real Time with Bill Maher. The plan was simple. Clooney would walk onto Maher's stage, charm the audience, offer a heartfelt apology, and sprinkle in some exclusive political insights to remind everyone why he was once so admired. However, Bill Maher wasn't exactly rolling out the red carpet. When Clooney's team pitched the idea to Maher's producers, emphasizing how his appearance would draw massive viewership and create a media frenzy, Maher reportedly shot it down without hesitation. This isn't a platform for celebrity image rehab, he allegedly said, making it clear he wasn't interested in being part of a shallow publicity stunt. Refusing to give up, Clooney's team came back with a revamped pitch, doubling down on the exclusivity and drama of the appearance. This time, they promised headline-grabbing revelations, direct clapbacks to his critics, and a spectacle guaranteed to dominate the media cycle for weeks. Their aim? To turn this interview into the must-see event that would catapult Clooney back into the spotlight and restore his image. The stakes couldn't have been higher, but Maher, as always, wasn't one to play by Hollywood's rules. Maher remained steadfast in his refusal, reportedly telling HBO executives that bringing Clooney on the show would alienate his core audience. His viewers tuned in for sharp, no-nonsense political analysis, not a celebrity's attempt at damage control. Maher was convinced that his audience valued substance over spectacle, particularly in a media landscape already saturated with fluff. At the heart of Maher's stance was a growing disillusionment with the role of celebrities in politics and public discourse. While figures like Clooney once wielded significant influence, Maher seemed to believe that the cultural tide had shifted. Star power alone wasn't enough to carry a meaningful narrative anymore. In his view, public trust demanded authenticity and depth, qualities he didn't see in Clooney's push for a televised comeback. Turning Real Time into a stage for a celebrity redemption story didn't align with Maher's vision for the show, and he wasn't about to compromise its integrity for a PR stunt. Despite the repeated rejections, Clooney's team didn't give up. In a last-ditch effort, they pitched an idea for a live Q&A session where Clooney would field unscripted questions from the audience to showcase his sincerity and directly address his critics. Once again, Maher declined, remaining unconvinced. Here's where the story takes a personal twist. After the third rejection, Clooney himself decided to intervene, reaching out to Maher directly. He proposed an unscripted, candid conversation, hoping to appeal to Maher's belief in open dialogue. But Maher wasn't budging. According to sources, he bluntly told Clooney that his show wasn't a platform for celebrity redemption arcs. For Maher, it wasn't just about protecting his ratings, it was about maintaining the show's credibility. This final rejection wasn't just a professional setback for Clooney, it was a deeply personal blow. A Hollywood icon who had spent decades accustomed to doors opening effortlessly with his charm now faced a rare and public refusal. For someone like Clooney, who had long been a darling of both Hollywood and the public, this moment of rejection was an uncharted and humbling experience, one that served as a stark reminder that even stars aren't immune to the shifting tides of public opinion. Behind the scenes, the feud between George Clooney and Bill Maher was intensifying. Maher, never one to mince words, reportedly mocked Clooney's persistent attempts to appear on Real Time during private conversations. According to insiders, Maher allegedly described Clooney's behavior as desperate, likening his repeated pitches to auditioning for a pity party. Though these remarks weren't made publicly, word quickly got back to Clooney, leaving him seething with anger. Maher didn't stop there. During one of his monologues, he took thinly veiled shots at Hollywood elites, ridiculing actors who clung to their fame by pushing political agendas rather than relying on their actual body of work. While he didn't name Clooney outright, the implications were clear to anyone paying attention to the drama. Clooney, however, wasn't about to let Maher have the last word. Frustrated and eager to shift the narrative, his team began pitching him to other platforms, including The Howard Stern Show. But even Stern, known for his unfiltered and edgy interviews, appeared hesitant. Reports suggested that Stern's team was cautious about associating with Clooney, given the actor's spiraling public image and the growing backlash surrounding him. As rejection after rejection piled up, Clooney's frustration reportedly boiled over. Behind the scenes, insiders described him as being in meltdown mode, venting his anger not just at Maher, but at the broader Hollywood ecosystem. Once known for his charm and composed demeanor, Clooney's erratic behavior was both surprising and unsettling to those around him. Meanwhile, Maher remained unshaken. Although he never directly mentioned Clooney by name, his pointed comments about celebrity culture and political posturing left little doubt about the target of his criticism. For Maher, this wasn't just a professional standoff, it was a principled stand. By refusing to entertain Clooney's PR campaign, Maher reinforced his commitment to authenticity and refused to let his show become a platform for shallow celebrity theatrics. What started as a simple disagreement has now morphed into one of Hollywood's most talked about scandals of the year. The clash between Clooney and Maher isn't just about an actor trying to salvage his reputation or a talk show host maintaining his integrity. It reflects a broader cultural shift where the public and even the entertainment industry seems increasingly unwilling to give celebrities a free pass. In a world shaped by social—
I don't understand how you say you love your country at the same time as you normalize this convicted felon, which I can—
It's wild how The View went from championing unity and inclusion to taking shots at Carrie Underwood, one of the most respected and talented voices in country music, just because she agreed to perform at the president's inauguration. You'd think someone like Carrie, who's practically America's country music sweetheart, would be applauded for wanting to take part in a historic national event. But instead, the moment she accepted the gig, the backlash exploded. Critics came out in full force, demanding her cancellation and accusing her of supporting a so-called convicted felon. Seriously, people actually ran with that narrative. But how did things escalate so quickly? And why does it feel like Carrie's the only one rising above the noise? Before the drama took over, she was universally adored, a small-town girl with a voice that stole the show on a major singing competition. Let's break down how this all spiraled and why Carrie might just walk away from it all with her head head held high.
Country superstar Carrie Underwood has spent most of her career avoiding political talk, but she's set to perform at the upcoming inauguration. She said in a statement that she's doing it because the country must come together in the spirit of unity and look to the future. And lots of her fans aren't thrilled about it, but lots of her fans are. So let's put this in perspective here. What do y'all think?
I personally hope we're moving beyond the era of politics where we want to cancel people's livelihoods because we don't like their politics. And whether it was the Dixie Chicks for criticizing George Bush, didn't agree with it then, and Carrie Underwood, if you have a problem, you register your complaint by not downloading her songs and not going to her shows.
Right.
But I also think from a business standpoint, it's not a bad decision for Carrie Underwood. 75 million people voted for Trump. Artists tend to skew left-leaning, so she's overnight going to become an icon of MAGA and the American right. She's probably going to make a lot of money off of it. So I get why she did it.
I say.
From the very beginning, Carrie Underwood played it smart. No scandals, no controversies, just pure talent. You never saw her splashed across tabloids for messy drama or desperate publicity stunts. She didn't need to stir up feuds or pull off wild antics to stay relevant. People loved her simply for being authentic, graceful, and incredibly gifted. With millions of records sold, a shelf full of awards, and a devoted fan base, she managed to stay above the chaos, steering clear of the messy world of political debates. Then came the invitation to perform at the inauguration. It should have been a moment of pride, an opportunity to stand on a national stage, sing a song that brings people together, and celebrate the idea that at the end of the day, we're all under the same flag. So why the outrage? Carrie accepted the offer with gratitude and a voice powerful enough to inspire millions. What's so wrong with that? To her critics, accepting the invitation was all it took to brand Carrie Underwood as a full-blown MAGA supporter, and they wasted no time calling for her to be canceled, boycotted, and blacklisted. Whatever it would take to knock her down. Sure, some loyal fans jumped to her defense online, but a fresh wave of detractors seemed determined to take her down. And for what? Singing America the Beautiful on a national stage? Seriously, let's rewind to the moment Carrie said yes. She got the official invite to perform at the inauguration, a huge honor by any standard. Instead of dodging the opportunity, she proudly shared her excitement about celebrating the country she loves. Her statement? A simple message about unity and looking toward the future. Hardly controversial, right? Well, you'd think so.
Right now, I wouldn't do it, even though I can't sing.
You would not sing?
No, I would not. I would not normalize him. And she says, I love our country. How do you love your country and support and normalize somebody who was a convicted felon who really wants to destroy the country, in my opinion? I don't understand how you say you love your country at the same time as you normalize this convicted felon, which I can say now every day.
A lot of my family voted for Trump. They love the country and vote for him. I think that people make these decisions for a lot of reasons.
Okay, fine. And I would not be the person to say don't do it, because I believe in free speech and everything about it. I personally would not do it. No one's asked me, but that's another story.
I would love for you to do a roast at the Trump inauguration.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, no one else had any thoughts?
There we are.
Before long, social media erupted with outrage as critics slammed Carrie for supposedly normalizing someone they couldn't stand. Angry posts flooded in, with some demanding refunds for concert tickets and others dramatically vowing to boycott her music for good. The backlash was swift and loud, but it wasn't the only reaction. While critics were busy trying to tear her down, a whole new audience started paying attention. To them, Carrie wasn't just a singer anymore. She was someone with real grit. Someone who refused to cave under pressure. Supporters praised her for having the confidence to take the stage at an event that many celebrities wanted nothing to do with. Instead of hiding or backing down, she stood firm, and for that, she earned a fresh wave of respect. So, while one side of the internet was up in arms over her decision, another group was cheering her on, seeing her as a voice of strength in a sea of celebrity silence. Almost overnight, Carrie Underwood's name was everywhere. If anyone needed proof that her critics weren't exactly the champions of tolerance they claimed to be, this was it. Social media exploded with insults and accusations, treating Carrie like she'd committed some kind of unforgivable offense. Don't believe it? Just scroll through the countless posts labeling her a traitor, a sellout, and a puppet for the establishment, all because she chose to perform at a national event. You'd think she had done something outrageous, rather than simply celebrating a historic moment. And of course, The View wasted no time jumping into the fray. Some of the hosts, known for their sharp criticism of anyone who doesn't align with their views, eagerly joined the pile-on, scolding Carrie as if she had betrayed them personally. But here's the part they're not talking about. Carrie isn't alone in her beliefs. Enter John Rich. The country star took to social media to back Carrie up, calling out his fellow artists for their silence. He didn't hold back, essentially saying, if you really care about this country, why are you letting Carrie take all the heat? Step up and speak out. His message struck a chord, making it clear that Carrie wasn't the only one willing to stand by her convictions. While some in the music industry chose to stay silent, worried about losing lucrative endorsements or upsetting politically charged record labels, Carrie Underwood didn't play it safe. She stood front and center, proudly expressing her love for the USA. And that's when The View swooped in to stir the pot. One of the hosts went as far as claiming that performing at the inauguration was like normalizing a convicted felon. But hold on, last time we checked, no one's serving time. So where's the felony conviction? When did that sentencing happen? Because all we're seeing is a lot of noise over legal drama that hasn't led to a single day behind bars. Then came the classic emotional finger pointing. The same host questioned how anyone could claim to love their country while standing beside someone they believe is tearing it down. It's the usual black and white thinking, ignoring the possibility that maybe Carrie simply wanted to honor her country, no matter who was in office. Another co-host chimed in, making it clear that she wouldn't perform for this administration, which is fair, it's her choice. But shaming an artist for making a different decision, that's the exact opposite of what free expression is supposed to be about. A few panelists tried to strike a more reasonable tone, pointing out that it's unfair to destroy someone's career over political disagreements. But as always, the loudest voices drowned out any sense of balance, piling on accusations without a shred of real evidence. Their hot take? If fans are upset, they can just stop listening to her music. Because of course, these TV personalities see themselves as the ultimate judges of who should or shouldn't have a career. But did Carrie's decision actually hurt her in the long run? Not even close. She's still winning awards, selling out concerts, and making serious money. The outrage faded as soon as the internet found its next target, but that doesn't erase the way she was dragged through the mud at the time. And if you need proof that it didn't break her, just look at her chart-topping albums and packed venues. The record labels never really turned their backs on her, probably because they know she's a powerhouse who keeps the cash flowing. The fans who chose to walk away in anger have been replaced by a new group of supporters who appreciate Carrie's unapologetic stance. What truly makes her story unique, however, is how it brings attention to the contradictory nature of cancel culture. This isn't just about one person being targeted, it's about how cancel culture often shows itself to be full of hypocrisy. Carrie's journey.
Austin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from sunny Austin. Sounds like a town. We're in sunny Austin.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Sunny Hostin recently found herself in the spotlight, but not for the usual reasons. Known for her strong opinions on racial justice, reparations, and systemic oppression, she's built her career on standing up for what she believes is right. But her appearance on PBS's Finding Your Roots took an unexpected turn, shaking up that image. In a surprising twist, Sunny learned that her ancestors weren't victims of oppression, they were actually slave owners. That's right, a vocal advocate for reparations discovered that her own family had directly benefited from the very system she has long condemned. Her reaction? A mix of shock, hesitation, and an awkward attempt to brush it off as just part of history. Greg Gutfeld didn't let this slide. With his signature sharp humor, he pointed out what he saw as clear hypocrisy. His take struck a nerve, igniting discussions everywhere. Should this revelation change how people view Sunny's activism? And when someone speaks about accountability, does their own personal history matter? Let's take a closer look at this explosive moment. Sunny Hostin, a well-known co-host on The View, has built her reputation on being outspoken about racial justice and identity politics. But now, people are questioning whether her message still holds the same weight in light of this discovery.
It was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from Europe.
Sunny Hostin often presents herself as a strong model voice, passionately speaking on issues like reparations and systemic oppression. She doesn't hold back when criticizing white privilege and is a firm believer in holding people accountable for America's historical injustices. Her advocacy is centered around bringing awareness to equity and confronting uncomfortable truths about race and privilege. Over the years, she has become a prominent figure in the push for reparations and a fierce, unapologetic commentator on systemic racism. But her appearance on PBS's Finding Your Roots took an unexpected turn, one that neither she nor her audience saw coming. Viewers tuned in expecting a familiar narrative, an ancestral history of oppression that aligned with her strong stance on racial justice. Instead, what they got was a shocking revelation. Sunny's ancestors weren't victims of oppression. They were actually slave owners. Her reaction, pure disbelief. She stumbled over her words, clearly caught off guard, and made an awkward attempt to downplay the revelation as just a fact of history.
How are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And I think it's great for our children to know this information. I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living, on the backs of others.
Sunny was visibly shaken, struggling to process what she had just learned. After a pause, she hesitantly admitted, "I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican. I never imagined my family were slaveholders." The silence that followed was thick with irony. It didn't take long for the internet to explode. Social media was flooded with memes mocking the moment, including one that read, "Reparations? Let me write that check to myself real quick." While some fans defended her, many couldn't ignore the glaring contradiction between her personal history and the views she so passionately promotes. The revelation reignited discussions about accountability and whether personal history should factor into activism. Sunny, who is usually the one calling out others, now found herself on the receiving end of criticism. Greg Gutfeld didn't waste any time delivering a sharp, humorous take on the situation. His most cutting remark? Sunny's ancestors were slave owners. That's like finding out a vegan secretly owns a barbecue joint.
On, new episodes of The View when she tries to pull the race card.
Yes.
And then she's like, America is racist. And then they're like, yeah, they might be racist, but they're not like slave owner racist. like somebody that we...
That's so true.
Yeah.
One thing, and I would have even actually not give her any, is she said, well, I guess that's just what they did back then.
Yeah.
She should have followed that up with saying something along the lines of, and I understand that that's a departure from the way I've talked about this before.
The punchline landed perfectly, and the audience burst into laughter. But Gutfeld didn't just stop at making jokes. He used the moment to call out what he saw as blatant hypocrisy. For years, Sunny has been outspoken about holding others accountable for their ancestry, often framing her arguments around systemic oppression and historical responsibility. Yet, when confronted with her own family's troubling past, she seemed to shrug it off, calling it just a fact of life. Gutfeld didn't let that slide. He pointed out how moments like these reveal the risks of identity politics, when the story someone pushes doesn't quite match the reality. He argued that Sunny's moral high ground had taken a serious hit, and stressed the importance of self-awareness and nuance when discussing complicated topics like race and history.
It is funny. She's so wrapped up in identity and she had no idea who she was.
Well, now we understand why she always makes Whoopi get the coffee.
Exactly, because if she is shaming descendants of this, will she continue to do that when she is now one of them?
Gutfeld explained that reducing complex issues to identity-based narratives can sometimes lead activists like Sunny to overlook important context, including their own contradictions. The real irony, he pointed out, wasn't just that Sunny's ancestors were involved in a system she passionately opposes, but that she avoided taking the moment to reflect on it. Instead, she quickly brushed past it, downplaying its significance. His commentary struck a chord with many who saw this as a prime example of what happens when moral superiority runs up against uncomfortable truths. To Gutfeld, this wasn't just about Sunny. It was a bigger lesson on how personal accountability often takes a back seat to performative outrage. After Sunny's shocking family history came to light, the internet wasted no time reacting. Social media exploded with memes and jokes, including one particularly viral caption, "Reparations? Let me write that check to myself real quick." Platforms like Twitter and TikTok were flooded with a mix of sharp humor and strong opinions, making the moment impossible to ignore.
You know, in her defense, everyone has ancestors that did unspeakably horrible things. It's just that not everyone's ancestors have records tied to their DNA about it. Worried for Sunny Hostin's progeny in the future that do a DNA test and find out that they were related to a cast member of The View. And they're like, oh, it all makes so much sense now why I'm so stupid and fat.
Some people defended Sunny, saying she shouldn't be blamed for what her ancestors did, but many others couldn't ignore the obvious contradiction. Sunny, who has built her platform on holding others accountable for their history, seemed to brush off her own with nothing more than a casual shrug, calling it just a fact of life. This sparked a heated debate. Should public figures like Sunny be held to the same moral standards they demand from others? Critics argued that her response lacked the reflection and growth expected from someone so outspoken about accountability. The irony of the situation made sure the backlash didn't fade quickly, keeping the conversation going for weeks. The fallout from Sunny's revelation didn't just stir up controversy, it also made things awkward on The View. When the bombshell dropped about her ancestors being slave owners, the usual lively energy at the table disappeared into an uncomfortable silence. Even Whoopi Goldberg, known for her quick comebacks, hesitated, seemingly unsure how to handle such an ironic twist. Meanwhile, over on Greg Gutfeld's panel, the reaction was the complete opposite. His co-hosts didn't hold back, throwing in sharp but playful jabs. One even joked that Sunny might have to start shaming herself for her family's past. The panel's laughter drove home their criticism of what they saw as her double standards, further exposing the cracks in her moral high ground. Rosie O'Donnell also weighed in, offering a more thoughtful perspective on the situation.
Guess there's nothing worse than to find out you're a white woman.
She's so disappointed.
It's really disappointing.
Her mother was white.
Oh my God.
Shame.
Oh my God.
The horror. History, and finds out that this is fantastic. She is descended from slaveholders. She's descended from slaveholders, and she's been apparently getting a lot of mail about her call for reparations because it turns out she's going to be paying them and not actually receiving them.
Rosie O'Donnell emphasized that people should be judged by their actions, not their ancestry, while also pointing out how identity politics can sometimes oversimplify complex issues like race and history. Her perspective highlighted how discoveries like these can challenge rigid narratives and force uncomfortable self-reflection. The reactions from both Sunny's supporters and critics revealed a clear divide. Some saw this as an opportunity to discuss personal accountability, while others viewed it as yet another example of identity politics backfiring in a big way. No matter where people stood, the tension surrounding Sunny's response was impossible to ignore. Her reaction to her family's shocking past felt like a missed opportunity. Instead of using the moment to reflect or start a meaningful conversation about the complexities of ancestry and accountability, she brushed it off as just a fact of life. For someone who has built a career on holding others to high moral standards, this casual dismissal left many feeling unsatisfied. This could have been a moment of growth. Sunny had the chance to acknowledge the irony, share her personal struggle with reconciling her family's past, and use the revelation to deepen discussions about historical injustices. It could have served as a powerful reminder that no one's history is simple or without contradictions, but instead, the focus shifted to her perceived hypocrisy and unwillingness to confront her own past, turning what could have been a meaningful dialogue into yet another debate over accountability. Sunny's story is a clear example that no one's history is without complexity, and that moral certainty can quickly unravel when inconvenient truths come to light. Her situation raises an important question. If you demand accountability from others, shouldn't you be willing to hold yourself to the same standard? With the internet's reaction, viral memes, and Greg Gutfeld's sharp commentary, this moment isn't fading anytime soon. Whether Sunny chooses to address it head-on or ignore it completely will shape how people remember her.